John Hoover joins us now. John, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Dave. How's everybody there?
Fantastic. Tell us where all we can follow your work before we dig into some things here.
Yeah, Twitter is the easiest place to find everything we do. My handle's easy, John E. Hoover. If you want to check out the site directly, it's OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com.
Perfect. Caleb, go right ahead, sir. I want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our good friends at Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. Stop by and tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports said hello, qualitytirepros.com. Caleb?
So, John, I wanted you on today because I wanted you to tell us this story of Josh Heupel's past at Oklahoma. Because when he was hired at Tennessee a few years ago, I did a deep dive into his whole track record and things like that. And I came across your Tulsa World article that basically dove into how, after playing Texas A&M, Bob Stoops tried to force that offense on Josh Heupel and wanted Trevor Knight to be Johnny Manziel. And it didn't work out. Can you give a full kind of timeline, and I'll give you the floor on just what happened from the beginning to end on that and how he got fired?
Yeah, so Josh, obviously, national championship quarterback at Oklahoma, came with Mike Leach, not with Mike Leach, but Mike Leach went out and found him at Snow Junior College, came in and changed the culture at Oklahoma from, decades of wishbone and power running and option football. Josh came in as a left-hander who wanted to throw for 4,000 yards every year. And people around here had never heard of that before, right? That was strange football. That was something that BYU did and the San Diego Chargers did. Can't happen at Oklahoma. Well, they did it. They accomplished it immediately, turned it around in year 2, won the national title. So Josh immediately has favored son status at Oklahoma. Well, as his coaching career begins to evolve, he goes to work coaching tight ends for Mike Stoops out in Arizona, comes back to coach Oklahoma, and he's coaching quarterbacks. And pretty soon he's elevated to offensive coordinator. And he's doing good. If you look at his offenses are putting up big numbers. Landry Jones, I think, third in the NCAA history with total passing yards or something like that. It's an absurd figure that Landry Jones put up in 4 years as the starter. Well, Josh, in that 2012 Cotton Bowl against Texas A&M and Johnny Manziel, that was Johnny football. Okay, that was the breakout. That was his Heisman year. He had a fantastic game against OU. And in 2013 and 2014, you saw Josh's recruiting of quarterbacks kind of go down a little bit. I think their passing numbers were 83rd in the country and 90th in the country in passing offense. And at some point, after the 2012 season, Bob Stoops said, hey, football is moving this way. Football is taking off and going in this Johnny football direction. Can you get us a quarterback that looks like that, right? And that's a tough call. He was, of course, unable to do that, but essentially he was trying to install an offense under Bob's orders. He was trying to install that read option Johnny football offense that he'd never come up in. He didn't have any DNA in that. He was an air raid guy. He was a Mike Leach guy. And, wouldn't you know it, he's been tasked with installing an offense that he doesn't really know much about. He doesn't have the roots there. So he tried. He did his best. Like I said, they finished down in the NCAA ratings a couple of years. They lost quite a few games in those couple of years. And Bob hated it. It killed him to do it. But he knew that the only way to move the program forward was to, your offensive coordinator, coach, is terrible. You're going to have to fire him, right? That's what everybody says. So he kind of relented and said, you know what? That's probably what I need to do. I got to fire Josh Heupel, as much as it kills me to do it. And, Josh's brother-in-law was the president of the university's son. His sister was married to the president's son. So he had the status of kind of untouchable, but Bob moved on and cut ties. And Bob had his college roommate coaching offensive line at the time, and that was a disaster. So he fired him, fired his co-offensive coordinator, Jay Norvell, who he also played with at Iowa. So it was kind of a fresh start for Bob in his career. After that loss to Clemson in the Russell Athletic Bowl, Bob seriously considered retirement. The president talked him out of it. Clean house, remake your staff, go get what you need to get. And what he needed to get turned out to be Lincoln Riley. Ironically, Lincoln Riley comes in and installs the air raid offense, basically, that Josh Heupel wanted to run. So it came full circle really fast. And more ironically, they bring in Baker Mayfield as a walk-on from Texas Tech. Baker Mayfield, Texas Tech, Cliff Kingsbury guy, air raid guy. I mean, Josh Heupel must have really, at that point in his career, felt very, very slighted by his alma mater.
Wow, that's brutal. Caleb?
So, what do you think Heupel's matter about, on a personal level, about this? The fact that he was fired for not being able to run an offense that Bob Stoops forced on him and then just replaced him with an offensive coordinator who ran the offense he wanted to run anyway? Or the fact that Bob Stoops didn't fire his brother as defensive coordinator at the time when the defense, it seemed like, was a major issue too in 2014 at Oklahoma?
It's probably the offense thing. That coach, that was my offense. That's what I ran. What he's running is what I ran as a quarterback and as an offensive coordinator. Why are you bringing him in to run my offense, basically? So, yeah, probably that. But I'll tell you this, just knowing Josh a little bit like I do over the years, when you say mad, he's not mad. He has let it go. It is water under the bridge. He's not holding a grudge about that. He was at the Hall of Fame ceremony a couple of years ago when Bob Stoops went in. He was at the Hall of Fame ceremony, or maybe not the ceremony, but he was, at the event when Josh was on the ballot and stuff like that. And they've, I've seen them hanging out together, after party type stuff. It's interesting. They're friends. They remain friends. I think there'll always be that little divide that, how much does he really love me? He fired me kind of thing. But at the same time, I think Josh is his own man now. You can see the maturity in his the way he's developed the program, first at UCF and then at Tennessee. He's developed it in his image, and they've been successful. And he's like, you know what? I've proven myself. My way works. That's ancient history. I'm not going to worry about that.
That's interesting that you say that, because I thought he was probably going, and he'll have his press conference this afternoon. I can go ahead and tell you what he's going to say. Yeah. It's just another game. And I don't think about it. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. That's what he'll do. I
love my time at Oklahoma. Cherish the memories I had there. Made great friends. But we're moving on.
Yeah, exactly. But you believe he really believes that in his heart, or is that just the right thing to say in that position?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of both. I think it's okay to say down the middle on that one. It's a little bit of both. He's not gonna. He's got his own internal fires. Josh does. Being the son of a coach, he's had his own motivations over the years. Nobody wanted me coming out of high school. Nobody wanted me coming out of junior college. Mike Leach was the only one that really wanted me. He doesn't wear that stuff on his sleeve. He doesn't beat his chest about, everybody thought I was an underdog and nobody thought I could do it. He just doesn't do that. And to his credit, Josh has always remained above the fray in that arena.
John, it's funny you say that, because Dave and I both get this vibe, and you would know it way better than we do, because we've covered Josh Heupel for 4 years and you covered him for however many years he was an assistant at Oklahoma, plus his 2 years as a player there. Does it seem like, even though he stays very calm and collected above the fray, that he's got a little bit of Michael Jordan Last Dance in him? He takes things personally, and he's a little bit cocky, and he wants to stick it to people.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. I think he internalizes that stuff. He doesn't wear it on his sleeve. He doesn't externalize it and go around, tooting his own horn or saying nobody believed in us, everybody counted us out. He might bring that up once in a while, but I don't think he flies that flag, so to speak. Versus he's really straightforward. Listen, the way we go, he's done it before as a quarterback. The way we go 13-0 is to go 1-0 each week. It's as boring as hell for us. And we want to talk to Bob Stoops this week, and we want to talk to Josh Heupel, and we want them to tell us stories about Josh being the quarterback and Brent being the co-defensive coordinator and them getting after each other in practice. We want to hear that colorful stuff. everybody's kind of just detached themselves from that process this week. It's kind of ticks me off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. I wish we had. This is a great week to expose all that, and not in a bad way, but just to go back and relive it and to retell those stories. No, nobody wants to pull the scab off the wound and say, "Ooh, Josh Heupel, he hates Oklahoma." That's not it. We want those stories about him versus Venables and Stoops jumping in there and saying, "Hey, stop, tearing up our defense so bad." Stuff like that early on in their careers was told fairly frequently, but now that everybody's got head coach and millions of dollars and status of the program and all that, everybody's kind of backing away from that stuff.
Right. And for those that don't know, Bob Stoops sent out a tweet that I'm not going to comment or do any interviews. This morning, I believe, is when it came out about
last night.
Oh, last night. Okay. Yeah. About the Tennessee Oklahoma game, which week. But anyway,
game day's in town. Holly Rowe wants to sit down with all those guys, right? And no, they're not having it.
No, that's not a fan of that. But with where Oklahoma is now and Brent Venables, he was the defensive coordinator for a long time for a reason. I'm not completely sure what that reason was. He had success last year, not so much beginning of the year. Injuries this year. Where is this program in terms of the way fans, who are obviously biased, view it? Is the jury still out on Venables? Are they all in on Venables?
I tell you, I'm getting a vibe. So my YouTube channel's kind of growing a little bit, and
tell us about that, by the way.
What's that?
Tell us about the YouTube channel. How do we?
Oh yeah, John Hoover Media is where you find all the OU interviews and all the assessments and evaluations and observations that we do as a staff at Sooners on SI. John Hoover Media, but there's a community on YouTube that is more vocal than any I've ever encountered on probably just this side of Facebook. Okay. And what I mean by that is they get on there, fans get on there, and they start popping off about they hate the head coach and they hate the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback is a 5-star, but he's a bum. And I've never seen anything like it. Like, I'm not sure what you want from this team as a fan base when your 4 best receivers coming back from last year are all injured, all 4 of them. You're 0 for 4 on bringing back wide receivers who can play football from last year. It's unbelievable. You've got 3 different games, right? So you've got 3 different combinations, completely different combinations. You've got one guy who started at one position on the offensive line all 3 games. Everybody else is mixing, matching, and going back and forth. What do you want from your offense? Your offensive coordinator, basically the head coach said, listen, first game for sure, next game probably, and even the third game, we're going to be perfectly vanilla. Don't call anything. And so everybody's coming down on the offensive coordinator. So the OC, Seth Luttrell, former Heupel fullback, right, on the national title team, he's got no receivers. He's got a mix and match offensive line. He's been told not to call anything because they want a vanilla game plan. They don't want to show Tennessee anything, right? And everybody's like, fire the offensive coordinator. It's that way at Oklahoma every year that the offense doesn't score 50 points and 500 yards a game.
Let me just ask you this. If you polled Oklahoma football fans and they said you could trade Brent Venables for Josh Heupel right now,
woo,
what would the percentage be?
I think there would be some that would be strongly in favor of it, but I think the large percentage would say, nah, we'll keep Venables. Large percentage, 80%, 85% would say we'll keep Venables.
Stuff. Anything else, Caleb?
Interesting. Yeah. So one last question for you on this, John. I know
That's a great question, by the way. Wow.
Yeah.
I know a lot of OU fans feel like Josh Heupel should have won the Heisman in 2000. I'm asking you about more of a Heupel slights that he perceives. Heupel didn't win the Heisman, and then he saw Lincoln Riley get 3 quarterbacks that he won the Heisman with when he was coaching Oklahoma. how much does Heupel? Do you think Heupel might work a little extra to try to like make a Nico Iamaleava Heisman winner just so he can get that one because he thinks he's been slighted too many times?
That's a good question. I think that's a fair question. There will be times in games, I believe, when Nico has the opportunity to come out, right, and not throw for three. He's at 295 with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they're up 48-10. Does Josh, in the back of his mind, does Josh say, let's bring him back? He's at 295 right now. I can see it on the scoreboard, right? The stats are right there in front of me that he's at 295. Maybe I'll just leave him in for one more series. Maybe we'll just try to get that quick completion and then bring him out. I could see where that would come into play, but I don't think just on the daily that Josh is sitting around thinking, I got to get a Heisman Trophy winner. Nico's my best chance to get a Heisman Trophy winner. I do think that he understands what it means to be a Heisman winner because he was snubbed, and it's not like his career went sideways because of it. But when he didn't get it, there's this famous quote, famous scene. I'm sure you guys are aware of it, of Winky being a captain on one side and Heupel being a captain on the other side at the Orange Bowl in 2001. And Torrance Marshall, the OU co-captain linebacker, saying, we're getting our trophy back for our boy tonight. The Oklahoma linebacker said that to Chris Winky at his face. So Josh has
awesome.
Yeah, we're getting that Heisman back. We're getting that trophy back for our boy tonight. It was amazing. And of course they did, in a manner of speaking. Winky, I think, got to keep the Heisman Trophy, but OU won the national title. But that's something that Josh was there, and Josh witnessed that. And I'm sure if you think about it, that was a moment in time. And now, how many times did his teammates tell him over the years, or in the locker room that year, or whatever it was, man, you got robbed of that Heisman. We're going to get it back for you. He's probably has it built in innately that. The Heisman is a big deal, and it can change lives and certainly change your fortune. Are you guys coming to the game? If you come to the game, you have to go to Heisman Park outside the stadium, east side of the stadium, right across the street, Heisman Park. There's 7 gigantic, they call them heroic size statues. They're about 8 feet tall of their Heisman Trophy winners. It is striking. And then when you look at that, when you watch that, or you go back and you take your pictures and you're looking at all those Heisman winners, on the north side of the stadium, northeast corner, back towards the tailgating and the parking lots, there's the Selman Brothers statue. So the Selman Brothers, Leroy, Dewey, and Lucius Selman, have their own statue in their own corner of the community out there, whereas it's just outside Heisman Park. It is so cool. It's one of the great I've been all over the country covering college football. It's one of the great scenes that I've ever seen, is people standing out there taking pictures of those Heisman Trophy winners.
John, I want to ask you another question. It's kind of similar to Caleb's, but let's say there's 5 minutes left. Tennessee's up 17 points, game's in hand. Tennessee has the ball in the middle of the field. Josh Heupel like to take a shot. Would he like to rub Oklahoma's nose in it?
I don't think so.
I do.
I think, honestly, he that's a little overt for my way of thinking, for Josh to approach it like that. I think he would do it with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter, 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. You know what I mean? He would do it in the flow of the game. Like, let's light these dudes up. Let's put the points on the scoreboard. Let's show them what life is like in the Southeastern Conference. Oh yeah, and let's get them back for firing me a couple of years ago. That kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think he would do it late in the fourth quarter. That would be a little bit too obvious that he's trying to rub it in. I don't. And when you say rub it in, Josh is not a guy that's going to rub it in. He's going to rub it in over the course of the game.
Gotcha. Well, that Missouri game, I go back to 2022. There was a late throw that's pretty questionable, but nevertheless, Tennessee. I mean, Josh Heupel fits right in because Johnny Majors and Peyton Manning, in my opinion, both should have won the Heisman, and they both finished second. We actually interviewed Peyton Manning about that, and he said,
that is total bullshit.
No, he didn't.
I thought that was a quote from me. That was my first year to vote as a Heisman voter, and I voted for Peyton, and I'm like, what? Charles Woodson, what? Come on.
John, let me ask you a quick question, real quick, just Oklahoma related, because y'all have had or not y'all, but Oklahoma, the fan base you cover has had a bad break because they had all these injuries, and it seemed like the SEC just decided to sabotage them their first year in the league. Was that about? Do you think, in your mind, it was about sabotaging Oklahoma or propping up Texas to give them such a much more difficult schedule?
Boy,
Oklahoma.
I can't.
Schedule's unbelievable.
It is. It's a tough schedule, and I just can't go there. I can't project myself into Greg Sankey's executive offices and the schedule makers and adhere to the fact that, hey, let's make it tough for Oklahoma or let's make it easy for Texas. I really, truly, honestly, and maybe I'm naive. I am naive. Let's admit it. I'm naive. I think that's just the way the schedule shook out. I think that's just the way these teams came in this year and those teams are rotating next year. I don't think there's anything to it. Maybe I'm not SEC ready. Maybe I don't have the
given the way you saw Texas stronger in the Big 12 for so many years.
Yeah. I just can't. I'm a conspiracy theory nut. I love them. I don't believe in them most times, but I love exploring them. So I'd be willing to listen to what you have to say on it. But just in terms of did it happen, I think it's totally coincidental. I think it's a raw deal. I think it's unfortunate for Oklahoma for the next 2 years. But maybe in 3 years, Texas will get their comeuppance, right? That's what Oklahoma fans are saying. But the fact of the matter is college football cyclical, and the teams that are good now are not going to be good 3 or 4 years from now.
Last thing, John, if you can kind of, you did to some extent address what Oklahoma has going on now, but in general, give us kind of a rundown of this team. And I know it's early in the week, so I hate it when people ask me for predictions. So feel free to say I'm not ready because I like to do a lot of research. Yeah. But if you do, how do you see this game shaking out? But in particular, what do you think of Oklahoma's strengths and weaknesses right now as a football team?
Yeah. Just to catch Tennessee fans up, Dillon Gabriel was the quarterback for 2 years. He was that kind of stopgap quarterback to fill in Brent Venables' first couple of years. We need somebody that can throw the ball. Let's go out and find somebody. Hey, I've got a history with this kid out in UCF. Jeff Levy brought him in. He did a really good job for 2 years. Had some shortcomings as a quarterback. Dillon Gabriel did, but during that process, they recruited a 5-star. Jackson Arnold, National Gatorade Player of the Year, Jackson Arnold out of Denton, Texas. Dillon had the option last December of returning to Oklahoma, and Jackson was like, Coach, I thought you said I would, that whole thing where a 5-star comes in. And they basically, I'm not going to say they ran Dillon off, but basically almost they ran Dillon off. They allowed him to go to Oregon, where he's going to go participate in a huge offense this year, and national title contender and Heisman Trophy contender. And he's closer to his homeland of Hawaii. His family doesn't have to fly as far. So that all worked out for Dillon. But he could have absolutely returned and started for Oklahoma this year. I should say he could have returned and would have competed with Jackson Arnold. So that's a little bit of where the program is. They've got some 4-star and 5-star quarterbacks committed and waiting in the wings. And Brent Venables has really, really upped the ante on landing defensive guys. He's gotten a defensive 5-star, which, again, I know it just means more. It's the SEC, but we're talking Oklahoma landing defensive 5-stars out of high school. They've gotten 3 in the past 2 recruiting classes, which – it's been a generation, guys, since that has happened at Oklahoma. So Brent has refocused his commitment and his coaching staff refocused a commitment to defense. And that has been huge. As you've seen this year, the defense is carrying this team. And meanwhile, you've got the 5-star quarterback. He's a sophomore now. He played a little bit last year as a true freshman behind Dillon Gabriel. You've got the offense kind of limping along, trying to find its identity behind this quarterback and a rebuilt offensive line and the injured wide receiver core. He's not entirely to blame for this, but that's the identity of the Oklahoma team right now. Is Brent Venables has rebuilt the defense and he chased off a Heisman contender at quarterback, right? That's what the perception is. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's the perception. And so that's where this team starts its membership in the Southeastern Conference.
John, great stuff. You're the best away team or opponent team guest we've had on this year. But in all fairness, if you look at who Tennessee's played, there hasn't been a lot of big market competition.
I got you.
No, but seriously, we could keep you on like all day. This is fascinating stuff. So I appreciate it. Tell us again where Tennessee fans can follow your work because they want to know about Oklahoma, especially this week.
Yeah, we put a lot of stuff out at Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com, 8-10 stories a day. Plenty of videos, all the player videos. And if you can't find it on that website, just go to my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media, to find all the player interviews, coach interviews, analysis, breakdowns, and everything. Pre-game, post-game, whole stuff.
Great stuff, John. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you guys.